Have you ever truly considered that everything you see in nature is not actually fixed, but constantly changing beneath the surface? That the colors you perceive right now, green trees, blue skies, golden sunlight, are not static properties of the world, but temporary visual states created by light, structure, and perception. Because in the natural world, there are living creatures that take this idea even further. They do not simply have color, they control it. They manipulate it. They rewrite it in real time. As if their bodies are not just biological organisms, but living displays, constantly adjusting themselves in response to the environment around them. To humans, color is mostly aesthetic. We use it for art, clothing, symbols, and design. But in nature, color is not decoration. It is survival. It is communication. It is deception. It is identity. And sometimes, it is invisibility. Among all the biological abilities found in animals, the ability to change color is one of the most visually striking and scientifically complex. Because what appears to be a simple shift from one shade to another is actually the result of highly advanced internal systems involving specialized cells, nervous signals, hormones, and even microscopic structures that interact with light itself. And what makes this even more fascinating is that this ability has evolved independently in completely different groups of animals: reptiles, cephalopods, fish, amphibians, insects. Each group has developed its own version of biological color control, shaped by different environments and survival pressures. When most people think about color-changing animals, the first image that appears is almost always the same: the chameleon. A slow-moving reptile sitting quietly on a branch, shifting its skin tone as if it is painting itself to match the world around it. But this popular image is only a small fragment of a much deeper reality. Because the chameleon does not change color simply to disappear. In fact, camouflage is only part of its purpose. Chameleons also use color as a social language. A visual system that communicates emotion, dominance, fear, aggression, and reproductive readiness. When threatened, a chameleon may shift into darker tones or sharp contrasting patterns. When challenged by another male, it may display intense, saturated colors as a warning signal. And during mating behavior, its body can transform into highly specific patterns designed to attract attention and signal genetic fitness. Beneath the skin of a chameleon lies a layered biological system composed of specialized cells. Chromatophores contain pigments responsible for base colors, such as red, yellow, and brown. Iridophores contain nanoscopic crystal-like structures that reflect and scatter light, producing blues and structural color effects. Melanophores regulate dark pigmentation and contrast. When the nervous system sends signals through hormonal or neural pathways, these layers adjust their spacing and configuration. And these microscopic adjustments produce large-scale visible changes on the surface of the body. What looks like magic from the outside is actually physics and biology working together at the cellular level.
But as extraordinary as chameleons are, they represent only one branch of a much larger evolutionary story. Because once we leave the land and enter the ocean, we encounter organisms that take color transformation to an entirely different level. In underwater environments, light behaves differently. Red light disappears quickly. Blue light dominates. Shadows shift unpredictably, and visibility is constantly changing. In such an environment, color becomes even more critical, not just for hiding, but for hunting, communication, and survival itself. And in this underwater world, few creatures demonstrate visual transformation as dramatically as the octopus. The octopus is often described as one of the most intelligent invertebrates on Earth. But its intelligence is only one part of its evolutionary success. Its ability to change color, pattern, and even texture is arguably even more astonishing. In less than a second, an octopus can completely alter its appearance. It can become smooth and pale, blending into sand, then suddenly transform into a complex pattern of stripes, waves, or high-contrast signals, and then disappear again into the background, as if it was never there. This is made possible by a multi-layered skin system involving chromatophores, leucophores, and iridophores. Chromatophores expand or contract to reveal pigments. Leucophores scatter ambient light to match brightness. Iridophores reflect specific wavelengths to produce shimmering effects. But what truly sets the octopus apart is its nervous system architecture. Unlike humans, whose brain acts as a centralized control hub, octopuses have a decentralized neural system. A significant portion of their neurons exist in their arms rather than in the central brain. This means each arm can process information, react to stimuli, and even make localized decisions independently. As a result, color and texture changes can be extremely fast, localized, and highly detailed. An octopus does not simply change color. It actively constructs a visual illusion that integrates perfectly with its environment. And this ability is not just for hiding. It is also used for communication, to signal aggression, to confuse predators, to coordinate hunting strategies, and even to mimic entirely different species. Some octopuses can imitate venomous fish, others mimic sea snakes, and some can create moving patterns across their entire bodies that resemble flowing water or shifting coral reefs. It is not exaggeration to say that an octopus can temporarily become part of the ocean itself. However, color transformation is not limited to large or intelligent marine animals. In smaller creatures, the same principle appears in different forms. Flatfish, such as flounders, are masters of seafloor camouflage. When they settle on sand or gravel, their bodies rapidly adjust pigmentation to match not only color, but also visual texture and pattern complexity. From above, they become nearly indistinguishable from the seabed. In tropical rainforests, certain amphibians can also modify their coloration. Some frogs darken their skin to absorb heat during cooler conditions. Others lighten their appearance in response to humidity or light exposure. Even among insects, color change appears in surprising ways. Certain beetles and butterflies do not rely on pigment changes at all. Instead, they use structural coloration. Microscopic ridges and layers on their exoskeletons manipulate light through interference and reflection. This causes their colors to shift depending on viewing angle, creating an illusion of movement, even when the body is completely still. This reveals something fundamental about color in nature. Color is not always a chemical property. Sometimes it is physics. Sometimes it is structure. Sometimes it is the interaction between light and microscopic geometry. In the natural world, color is not a fixed attribute. It is a dynamic phenomenon. But beyond all of its beauty and complexity, the most important function of color change remains one thing: survival. Because in nature, visibility is a double-edged sword. To be seen can mean recognition, communication, or attraction, but it can also mean detection, danger, and death. For this reason, countless species have evolved to manipulate their appearance in response to environmental pressure. Camouflage to avoid predators, bright colors to warn enemies, rapid shifts to confuse attackers, subtle changes to regulate temperature, and dynamic patterns to communicate intent. Over millions of years, evolution has tested countless variations of these abilities. Only the most effective strategies have survived and persisted. And as a result, we now observe a world filled with organisms that can visually transform themselves in ways that often feel almost unreal. The deeper we study them, the more we realize something important. The world is not as visually stable as it appears.
What we see is only one interpretation of a constantly changing reality. Because behind every color in nature, there is a system responding, a mechanism adjusting, a living organism adapting in real time. Life is not static. It is not fixed. It is not permanent in appearance. It is fluid, reactive, adaptive. And in that constant transformation, color becomes more than a visual trait. It becomes a language of survival written directly onto the body of life itself.